Welcome into the first episode, the pilot episode of the Half Price Concessions podcast. My name is Tyler Williams. The other gentleman laughing with me in Setzer Tower at Ace Speedway is my old buddy Jason Turner. Guys, Half Price Concessions, that is the best time to be at a racetrack. We're getting near the end of the night. We'll probably stop taking tickets so you can mosey on in for free. And you go to the concession stand, your $3 cheeseburgers now $1.50 or $1. So there's no better time to be at the racetrack, Jason Turner. Even though we ain't got no concessions right now, we're sitting here running on. Well, I know you're running on in the morning. You had just a race last night here at Ace Speedway, but I'm glad to have you, brother. We don't get to spend much time together during racing season. You're so dang busy. It's good to have you on a Saturday morning. We can just kind of chill and take it easy.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, man. We didn't really leave the racetrack this morning until about 2 o'clock, 2:30, so that definitely adds to the tank being on E.
We got a third person up here with us in Setzer Tower. That is Mr. Jackson Turner. And you might hear him contribute a little bit to today's show, but just keeping it simple, this podcast, every time you hear it, is just going to be long-form conversations, a couple good old boys getting together, kind of talking about different things and stuff, but nothing too serious, nothing too structured. We're just, just having fun. So much that's out there is we're banging on politics, we're banging on news, we got to have heated hot takes and debates and whatnot. And I kind of was just like, man, let's just be easy and have a little fun. So, Jason,
are we still going to call it Half Price Concessions, no matter what we talk about or where we're at?
Yeah, that's just the form name. We might be talking about the Middle East and Pakistan and Afghanistan, whoever else. It'll always be the Half Price Concession podcast. So, Jason, since you're on the show this week, I don't really know what to call you because I've heard you on other things. I don't know whether to call you co-owner, co-promoter, head man in charge. I don't know what to call you at Ace Speedway. So what would you call you to a complete stranger that does not know Ace Speedway from a hole in the ground?
Well, like always, I just try to always consider myself Jason first and foremost.
Yeah.
I'm no different than anybody else. I used to race here, and now I just have the fortunate ability to be the person in charge here. There's been a lot of people that they say, oh, there's no way that can happen. Well, there is a way. If you can go to the bank and borrow money to buy a house, as long as you got a viable business plan and you can show numbers, it's all numbers on the spreadsheet. So you go to the bank and you bank on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You show revenue, you show you got your expenses, you file your tax returns just like everybody else. You are a viable business that, works. So here we are. This is the end of our second full season. And I think people are starting to really come around to the idea that, hey, changes come to Ace Speedway, and it's a positive change. But to answer your question, Dad and I do own the racetrack. It's a 50-50 venture between the two of us. We've spent a lot of nights here, a lot of weekends, a lot of full days, a lot of money between the two of us has been spent here. There's new manicuring equipment for the lawn. You've got new tractors, new bush hogs, new lawnmowers, new weed eaters, new leaf blowers. We've got a whole lot of new around here. There's new lights, new wheeling lights around the racetrack. We've completely renovated the VIP suites. The concessions are probably clean as they've ever been. We had our health inspection this year, our random health inspection, and they were shocked at what they found. They came in here and was like, wow, this is going to make our job really easy.
Yeah.
That.
You mean they didn't find no cockroaches in the chili? Or I'm gonna tell a funny story on this. So, concession stands have to get rated just like your Taco Bells or your family restaurants. You got to, if you're serving food, you got to get your inspection. And when I was working here previously, I think it was 2010 or 2011 when Abraham Wojciechowski owned the racetrack and Brad Allen was the promoter. There was a Friday night that we were racing, and the inspector was coming out on Friday night. So we're already busy, and there's stuff going on. And, oh, by the way, here comes somebody to peer over your shoulder and make sure everybody's washing their hands and doing what they need to do. Well, in the middle of the inspector being here, Abraham, the then track owner, is wandering around in the concession stand. I think at one point he went to put his hand in the chili pot to sample, and one of the cooks like had to say something to him like, Abraham, like, not the night to do that. The inspector's here. So it takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure you pass the inspection thing, because you don't pass that, that's a big revenue stream. So it's not as easy as just sweeping and mopping. You got to put the stuff in place and make sure no one's back there like, let me sample the slaw while the inspector's here.
And that's been a huge learning experience for us, is, as Dad calls in.
I was about to say, he never gets a day off. Even on Saturday, he gets called to the track.
So it's a learning experience at its finest, because you take something that you know absolutely nothing about. I know what good food tastes like.
Yeah.
So when people come here, I want people to have a good racing experience and good food to go along with it, to kind of marry the total experience of what Ace Speedway, what it means to come to Ace Speedway.
Yeah.
So we're diving into the concessions a little bit. You understand, you have to keep food frozen. You understand you have to keep certain things refrigerated. You can't go over a certain temperature, or you have to hold food at a certain temperature. We've got it down to what I feel like is a science. We know.
You know how much to order.
We know how much
every
to
week,
order,
and how much not to order is
yeah.
probably the bigger thing. I don't think people realize you wouldn't know it unless you're innocent. So you're in it. So it's not a thing of being, willfully ignorant. It's just you don't know unless you have to make those purchases. It's not like, McDonald's or Burger King where it's every day and you know how many people come through. This is once a week or once every other week. The weather cancels your races sometimes, and you're sitting there on a bunch of food going, how long is this going to keep?
Well, as long as it's kept frozen, that's essentially what you're doing, is freezing time. So, when something is kept at literally 0 or negative 10 degrees, it does not expire. It can literally almost, per their definition, they can keep it indefinitely. But, just little things like that you don't learn, you don't know until you try, or you don't know anything about until you learn.
Yeah.
You make a lot of phone calls, and you make a lot of, quite frankly, I've, gotten to where I know the health department pretty well just by picking up the phone and calling them and saying, hey, I'm thinking about adding this. What's involved?
Yeah.
And then they'll give a little bit of guidance, and I'll say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Or hey, next year we're probably going to add a cold bar to where people can have chopped up onions and slaw and things like that. And what's all involved? Well, you got to buy this $2,700 piece of equipment.
It's not as simple as just going out and adding a table at your yard sale,
pretty much,
or at the potluck supper at the Baptist church.
It's all because you're cooking for the public, and the public at large needs to be not exposed to, E. coli and things.
Who don't want a good bout of E. coli?
Oh man, I would take a lot of E. coli with a fresh side of salmonella. But there's a lot of things like concessions to fan customer experience, customer relations. You work on promoting all the time, so promoting is like a job title within itself. Most people just throw the term promoter around loosely, as something that's associated with the racetrack when you're in charge, whether it's in one capacity or another. So you think about the total experience, the whole as a package. You have a lot of cars. If you have a lot of cars, you'll have a lot of fans. If you have a lot of fans, you can attract sponsors. If you have a lot of sponsors, you can pay the racers more, so you can attract more cars, which attracts more fans, which hopefully attracts more sponsors.
Like a wagon wheel going around.
It's a vicious circle that but you have to start somewhere. And I think the hype of us taking the track over, us giving new life to the racetrack, giving it a fresh chance, whereas others probably didn't have either the patience, the time, the know-how, or the ability. All we did was just good old-fashioned hard work. We didn't know what we were doing when we got here. We didn't know what we bought. We just know we wanted it. Didn't matter what it was going to take to get it to where it needed to be. We were going to do it.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool. Well, pretty fitting we're here, because Ace Speedway is actually how you and I got to meet back in 2010 when I started working at the racetrack as an announcer. So I kind of thought about, different things we could talk about just how special the racetrack is, and without spinning the yarn too long, because we're trying to keep it to 30-some minutes. We could sit here for 6 hours. I know we're already at 9 minutes, man. Golly, time is flying. But I kind of want to go back. Let's talk about kind of like that, because usually it's always like that first hit, that first like memory that kind of is what brings you back in any form or capacity. So you're born in 87, I'm born in 88. We're pretty close in age, even though you look younger and I look older. Technically you're older, but take me back to that first kind of memory you have here, kind of just in some form or fashion, that first recollection you have of being around this place back when it was 3/8 of a mile, not 4/10 like the present layout is.
Yeah, I think the one of the first memories that I have was just as a kid, maybe, it was probably 6 years old, around that time frame. So definitely, 1993, after the track was paved. I don't really remember. I've been here when it was dirt, but I just don't recall much, if any at all. I remember, Ace was just what you did on Friday nights.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I remembered it.
Ace was, when Friday night comes, you get out of school, you got somebody that's a family friend or whatever that picks you up. So, my family friend that picked me up was Gina Blackwell. This is the wife of John Blackwell, who's actually still currently an Ace Speedway sponsor with J.B. Blackwell and Sons Trucking.
It always had to be somebody, because mine was my grandpa.
Yep.
That was the only day of the week, is if there was a race that night, that my grandpa would pick me up, because we had to be somewhere. We wasn't just going to the house, and we wasn't going to the high school football game until later in life. It was just a thing of, there you hear Jackson in the background. It was just, like you said, that was just the thing you did on Friday, was you came to the Ace Speedway.
Yeah, we came to Ace Speedway. There was a lot of other local kids that came. They were either children of drivers.
You can tell Jason's a co-owner because your phone keeps ringing.
They were either children of other drivers, or they were children of fans, and everybody just, it didn't matter if you were a driver, a sponsor, a fan. You were just the kids. And what we would all do, parents would give us $1 or $2 to buy some food and a drink with, and then it didn't matter to them. They were either here to race or here to watch, and the kids just roam around.
Yeah.
This place is safe. It's fun for all ages. It's family oriented. So, we.
Now, were you going in the stands or were you going in the pits? Because your dad was racing.
Dad would be racing, and where I would be located is right outside the back of turn 3, which is still in its present location today. And what we would do is, like, all the kids would ante up our money in a pool and go buy a whole Domino's pizza.
I forgot about those.
See, the Domino's pizza.
Because I never got that. I got the same thing every Friday. I got 2 hot dogs and a fry. I didn't know we had Domino's pizza.
You could get a whole Domino's pizza back then for like $8.
So everybody's pulling together like some broke college kids to get a pizza.
You chip in, you get your pizza, and then after the pizza and Pepsi are gone, we take the pizza box and cut it in half, and we have races down the hill.
In the turn 3 hill. See, that's a steep hill.
Yeah.
It goes down in that ditch, because if you don't know better, was it winter of 98, they stretched it out to 4/10?
It was winter of 98, so 1999 was the new season where they came out with the longer configuration, the 4/10 mile configuration.
The turn 3 side of the property was the part that didn't get touched. What
Correct.
Morton and them did was they stretched out turns 1 and 2. That's why if you look at Ace Speedway from an aerial view or just even from the back, you're like, why is the flag stand so close to turn 4? Like, it's not symmetrical. It's the way it was before Morton and then stretched it out to 4/10. So that turn 3 hill, if you go sit on the backstretch, that would be a great sled hill if there was snow on it.
Oh yeah, it really would. But we would always we would sit back there with Perry Nichols and his entourage, all of his family friends and his friends and family and everybody that just always kind of just enjoyed racing, and that their life revolved around Ace Speedway and the racing that went down here. But for whatever reason, I wasn't I wasn't always this old, so at this time, in their life, that's what they did. They enjoyed racing.
Yeah.
And there was always full fields of cars, lots of action that went down here. So, Perry sponsored Todd Massey, one of Dad's biggest competitors, so he was always here naturally to watch.
Yeah.
So we would always sit over there with like Butch Ward and his wife and kids, and we would always sit over there.
Did Todd have shirts back then?
Go yeah.
The only shirt I had in my childhood at Ace was a Richard Bailey pocket shirt, and the only reason I had that was because my uncle was a co-owner in the car. But I guess I was too young to remember anybody having the shirts around Ace Speedway. But I'm glad somebody did.
Todd had some shirts, and I think even Speedy had shirts back when he first came on the scene.
Yeah.
He was a self-proclaimed old school racer from the get-go, and he always did. He drove with that old school mentality, and won a lot of races that way. But that was some of my memories, some of my recollection, and then other recollections would be things like.
Here, I'll open the door while you hold the cell phone. You can tell this is unedited on the fly.
This is all raw comedy.
Yeah.
But anyways, so what we would do is, we would either have races down the back stretch of turn 3, or we would, definitely have a frog catching contest over in the creek behind turn 2 before they kind of leveled that all out when they reconstructed the racetrack. So that's really what I really remember the most is that and the bike races that I always participated in.
We'll give Jason a break. He's going to attend to something real quick. My memories were always kind of tied to it was the routine that we had coming to Ace Speedway. So the way our routine would work would be I'd get out of school in either elementary or middle school, because I came steadily on a Friday night basis until I was 14. So what we would do, I would get picked up from school. I'd go over to my grandpa's house. We'd go over to my grandpa's house over on North Sellers Mill Road over in East Burlington. We'd sit over there for a little bit because we would get there about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Well, then about 4:45-ish, we would ride over. You Burlington people will know what this is. We would ride over to Squaw Valley, this little neighborhood along Hall River in East Burlington behind one of the Burlington fire departments, and we'd pick up a guy named Marty, who my grandpa was friends with his mom and dad stuff. We'd go pick Marty up, and then we'd come to the track. We would be here at 5:30. We got here so dang early, sometimes they didn't have people out there to get the tickets, so we would come on in. Grandpa would put our seats up. We would sit right just coming out of turn 4, right next to now it's a red railing, it was always white. He would go put the seats up. My job was to get the food. I would get his food. He wanted a bologna burger with onions and mustard, fries, and a Coke. My order was 2 plain hot dogs, French fries, and maybe a cheer wine or a Coke or something. And we would go sit down and watch practice, because practice started at 6. We watched practice. My grandma would get to the track around 7-ish. 7 was always the driver's meeting, and then after that we'd have qualifying, and she would always go buy one of Larry Tomar's programs, and she would bring a pen, and my grandma would write the qualifying times down, and then we'd just watch the racing.
So you guys had jobs when you came to the racetrack? Like you had things that each person was supposed to
We
do?
had tasks, yeah. We had assigned tasks. My job was to get the food and make sure the bologna burger had onions on it and get my food. I had $5. That's, and my order fit in that price window. Grandpa put the seats up. I'd come up. We'd sit, and he would have friends there, but I was a kid. I didn't have much to add to the conversation. I actually made him mad one night. So this was 98 or 99, and they had these new Ace Speedway hats. They were gray, not gray. They were khaki. And I guess they had a discount night. I got my hat for $5. So my grandpa gave me a 20 and said, "Go get me one of them hats." Well, I went, and the only hat they had was this black Ace Speedway hat with a checkered flag kind of swooped across the bill.
I think I remember those.
That hat wasn't $5.
Oh.
That hat was $14, So I came back up with that hat and gave him $6 and change, and my grandpa looked at me like, "Where's the rest of it?" I didn't understand prices and sales at that point, but those were kind of my first memories. Was my grandpa was not strict on me that I could not go run around with like Zach Albright and the rest of the kids, but I sat in the stands and I watched the racing, and that's where I became a fan of your dad's, because your dad's race car in those early 90s was painted like Rusty Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a Rusty Wallace fan because my grandma's brother was working for Penske. So you had to pull for Rusty Wallace in Williams' household. So as a kid, I just naturally identified with, there's in my 5-6-year-old mind, there's Rusty Wallace on the track. I'll pull for that car. And that's how I became a Robert Turner fan. And then we get to 2010.
Oh, boy.
We'll pick it up there. I'm working for Brad Allen, announcing for Ace Speedway, and now you have gotten out of the Mini Cup and you're going full body car racing.
That was limited late model rookie year.
Boy, we were a lot younger.
Yep.
We had a 2 in front of our age rather than a 3.
I remember the first day we actually met. It was a practice day, a Thursday, before opening night. We kind of sat down and spoke about. Well, we didn't really sit down because, you would have to sit down. I'd still stand. But
they were about the same height still.
They were on the same level.
For those that don't know, I'm about 6'5". Jason, what do you measure at? About 5'7"?
5'7".
It's quite the difference.
On a good day.
Yeah, he's got his high heels on.
But we met actually right down, not too far from where we're at right now. We're up in the tower, but we actually met right down by the flag stand at the grandstands. Tyler was funny. We're in the race shop working, and I hear Dad get off the phone with Brad Allen talking about this new hotshot announcer, and so we got a really good hotshot announcer with a good voice, and around that time they started this radio show also, so we got to sample what it was like, and I realized he had a really good voice for radio, but I was wondering, does he have a face for radio too?
Sure do.
So really, after getting to meet you, that was, we kind of talked about, was I coming back for Mini Cup, and when you found out I was going to full body cars, you were kind of shocked at first. You didn't really.
It's such a difference. The Mini Cup is so dang small, and the limited late model. Well, I think we called them limited sportsmen at the time, but it was.
Yeah.
It's a full body car. I'm gonna tell you something that makes my wife shake her head. I forget sometimes our date anniversary. I will forget birthdays. I will forget what we go to the grocery store for. But I still remember how I introduced you in 2010. You want to hear it?
I can't remember.
Out of Burlington, North Carolina, driving the Guardian Angel Senior Home Care Chevrolet second generation speedster, Jason Turner.
Now,
I can remember that, but I can't remember what I went to the grocery store for.
Now, but you announced that when I was on like a qualifying run, or
qualifying, and then like the twice a year that y'all would be the main event, and y'all be on the front stretch. You'd have the motor shut down, and I would go by each car because Brad's big emphasis to me when I started announcing was, what are you going to do for these guys with their sponsors? And the school that I came from was, I'm hitting every sponsor they got on the car. I don't care if it's grandma and grandpa's trash collecting, yard sale, hair care, and tire center. They need some love because they're probably not getting much money for it anyway, and every little bit helps. So I wanted to say every sponsor there was. Well, the only sponsor on your car, I think that was your mom's business, and it was on the side window. It wasn't even on the quarter panel. It wasn't on the hood. It wasn't on the bumper. It was just on the window, and I was like, by God, I'm hitting that one.
Yeah. No, like the old limited car, it was a mutt. That thing was like a 1996.
Was that a children's car?
It was a Hitchcock.
It was a Hitchcock.
And it had the same matching rear clip, but we updated the front clip to a 2005, which is when they had the drop snouts. We got that car together after I had already rebuilt the car that I had ran after that. So I built my better car first, and then was told that I'm going to be driving this old jalopy first. Well, after I'd done spent the time and the money to get one car right, I've got to go back and redo another car.
Just the work never stops.
Yeah, it just never stopped. That was
the fabulous life of the race car driver who's not, in the fans' eyes, not even in the premier division. You're in the division just below it.
Yeah.
So you're not even getting the full love like the late models did. You're having to do all this work.
So we got this car together, and it had steel fenders and steel quarters, and I think we had aluminum doors for it, and just plastic rockers, but that thing had red and blue and white and black body parts. It was just a mixture of whatever I had left, and that chassis.
Because your dad had been racing so long, and it's kind of like anything else. It's not hoarding, but it's just over a period of time you acquire all this stuff. And I heard Jason Meyer say one time, you hate to throw anything away because you might be in a position where you can't buy something. You need to just fix it.
Yep.
So you try not to throw things away when you're working on race cars.
Yeah, I think we actually had a pile of body parts outside the door, just kind of around the corner, and I was able to pick everything up except the hood. But and at that time I knew how to wrap cars, but I didn't do it as a profession or even as a side gig at the time. So I had a roll of black film, and away we went. We just said, I'm gonna make the whole car black, and my number is gonna be red and white, like Dad's number 1990 or his 1998 number 2, where he won a lot of championships or a lot of races with that number in that particular style. So it was kind of important for me to throw it back to that. Right off the get go, I wanted that number 2 because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
I still remember the first race. My grandfather got to come. He got to sit in the pits and watch that race. We actually had.
Did he have a radio on, or did he just watch?
He just wanted to watch, but he enjoyed himself. I think that race had 14 cars in it, but it was names like, Hatley and Moore and Zimmerman
Ziggy,
and Boo Boo and I think Patrick Coleman. I think he was still in Extreme at the time, and then they moved up the next year.
Yeah, that's what
and
it
then,
was.
it was also, like Whitney Clifton, for example. Her dad, Ronnie, and my dad, they raced a lot in the early 90s together. And so, having her there and several other second-generation drivers was really cool to kind of watch us all come up at the same time in that one class. But, we actually finished 5th that night out of, 14 cars, and we had, that's when I kind of realized, hey, I got a shot at this.
Yeah.
It's not something that I just like to watch. It's something that I think I can really do.
Probably the top memory I have of calling you racing, I don't know if it was 2011 or 2012, the Michicelle Memorial Race.
2013.
It was a big limited late model race that David Sell had organized, and it was charitable. It was limited late models. We were running on scuff tires, so we were trying to cut costs and involve more people. And we had a good crowd of cars. I think we had a good crowd of people. And I remember, you try not to play favorites when you're announcing these races, but when you make friends and stuff, it's hard not to kind of lean on it. And I remember you were running, I think, 3rd or 4th. You were somewhere in the top 5, top 6, and we had a restart. And it was early in the race, and you went through turn 3 and 4, and I look up. I'm only supposed to see, in the corners, I'm only supposed to see the hood of your race car. Jason came through the corner, and I saw the side numbers. I was like, oh, no. Jason had, I don't know if someone spun you, or you just, something on the scuffs, you just spun yourself or something.
We actually, with a scuff tire race like that, they, whoever's organizing the event and putting on the show, so the promoter, if you will, they grade the tires. This is a B, a C, or a 1, 2, 3.
And that's tough to do. That's an inexact science.
They look at them. They measure tread depth. They measure anything they can to get a good idea of what that tire looks like. Color, if it's changing some colors, it's got some spots on it where it's either feathering or whatnot. They look at that tire and say, okay, this is going to be a B. We're going to put 2 Bs in every stack and an A. Well, doggone, if I didn't get luck of the draw, I
You got a
swear
real good set.
my tires had to have been like 5-lap late model takeoffs from a qualifying run somewhere, like Martinsville or what have you. And these things were just, there was so much good left in those tires, it was ridiculous.
And your eyes were like 50-cent pieces. You're like, I got an advantage.
I got these bad boys mounted up, and I come back to the trailer, and Dad's looking at me, and I've just got this mess-eating grin on my face. And he's like, what's your deal? I said, look at these tires. You know, and you got to say it under your breath because you know racers police themselves fairly well.
They're really good at policing. They police others better than they police themselves.
Right. Well, see, that's when they beat themselves because they're focused on everybody else instead of themselves.
There's a great meme on Facebook. If you're a race fan, you've probably seen it, where it's a driver complaining about another guy. He's like, you know, he's like in tech. He's like, I know that thing's cheated up because I'm cheating like crazy and he's still beating me.
Yeah.
Racers are the worst about this.
But you know, I was always told to not focus on that, to focus on my car, because if I focus on my car, it's going to be that one that they're pointing at.
Yep.
But anyway, so that race, I don't know if it was. I think it was actually the initial start. There was 31 cars in that race. We qualified 5th or 6th. I think it was 6th. But anyhow, you know, we're up on the front stretch in that race, and you know, Dad, he's always very, very funny about how he expresses himself. His emotions are not always, you know, as raw as stuff like that. But when, I guess anything, you know, now being a dad, I would understand more. But
yeah,
when
his
you see
adrenaline's going and it's his kids. So that's
when
twofold.
you see your kid succeeding in something that he has had so much success at, it's something that he just it just came over him. But you know, he's standing beside the car and he puts his hand over his eyes like a sun visor on a hat, and he's like looking toward the back of the field. And I was like, who are you looking for? He says, no. He says, it's a bunch of cars back there. He said, and it ain't many up here where you at. He said, so you've worked hard and you've done something right. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to show him how to lead this race.
Well,
so we didn't quite get there. I think the highest we got was 2nd or 3rd in that race. Yeah. But the thing is that we had to overcome a lot of adversity in that race, and some of it came from the tower. You know, it was the race director at the time. We were pacing the field. It was Red Justice in the pace car, I believe. And that whole season, we had a lot of trouble with the pace car driving. But here it is. You've easily got $1 million to $2 million worth of race cars on the racetrack, and they're already pacing us slow. I mean, the cars are in 3rd gear, and they want to bunch us up for a really good start. I get it, but when you know the pace car is supposed to speed up coming down the backstretch to get out of the way.
Red would slow it down.
He would slow it
down. You boys are out there stalling.
We're stalling or having to put it in 2nd really quick to keep the motor, you know, revved up. Because here you are, you're on the backstretch, you're in 3rd gear, you push the clutch in, and you're hitting the gas a little bit. You know, you're kind of livening the car up a little bit. You're psyching up your opponents around you. You know, you're getting the carburetor cleared out for a good launch, and you know, you're scrubbing tires to make sure you got a good, clean, fresh start. And here you go, everybody's bunching up in front of you, and the only thing we could do, come to find out, you know, I had nowhere to go, but you know, I couldn't go inside or outside, so I just rammed the back of Ziggy Zimmerman. Well, you know, my whole radiator ducking, and the nose of the car is bent up, and the hood of the car is bent up, so you can't hardly see. So I must have qualified 5th because I was able to come down into the pits, but I pulled down into the pits and have to watch the cars go by to take the green flag. So I'm a lap down at the beginning of the race. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, you have 2 choices at that point. You can either beat yourself and be deflated about it, or you can take the challenge and go get that lap back.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. Well, anyways, you know, the come to find out what had happened was they didn't like how the back end of the field was, how it looked, because they was too far spread back.
Yeah.
So they tell Red Justice to come back out on the track. Well, usually what you would say is throw the yellow and the pace car pick your field up back out of 2.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he didn't do that. He just cuts right over in front of $1 million worth of race cars and bunches us all up. Well, with nowhere to go, you naturally just ram somebody.
And that's what happened to you.
That's what we had to do, was then come down pit road and get attendance from the crew And they did a really good job. They duct taped a lot of stuff to where we actually had a radiator duct, and we never had a heating issue. We were in the car for 2 hours that day. So I think
that was a long day.
Yeah, that
race took forever. I ran out of crap to talk about.
A 74 lap race, and these dudes are running out of gas. My battery actually died. You know, we had an alternator. No, we didn't run an alternator then because we didn't want to rob any horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, so in that race, you know, we took advantage of that cone restart every time we could. You know, we got to where we developed a science with my spotter, Robbie Pitts. He would tell me how many cars would take the outside. So he's like, okay, you're sitting in 25th right now, but there's 7 cars on the outside. Hey, you ain't got to tell me, Hoss, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Let's roll. You know, we'd take restart cones every single time, and that race was real intense for me because not only did we have to come from the back to the front, but we had to do it twice.
Yeah.
Because of a mid race spin to avoid, that put me back at the rear of the field because I spun out, but I was spun to avoid. I wasn't necessarily involved in the caution. But anyways, so coming from the back to the front twice, and that, you know, we kind of robbed all the good out of those tires that we had. Too many heat cycles and restarts, but we finally got up to like third, I think, second or third. And racing with Tommy Neal, you know, he was catching me. I was about a half a straightaway ahead of him at the time, and my battery starts going out. So now
we're sputtering. We're struggling for horsepower.
You're just driving.
Yeah.
You're driving hard as you can. You're going down the front stretch. You know, while you got the motor, you know, going up through the RPMs, you cut your radiator fan on. You know, you're not working the battery that hard. You cut it off getting in the corner so it doesn't sputter coming off. You know, and then to make matters worse, your brakes start going out because your brake fluid's too daggone hot. So I'm pumping the brakes going down the back stretch, turning the fan off, and then getting in the corner, using the brakes, coming off the corner, hit the gas, turn the fan on, pump the brakes going down, then you get in the brakes, turn the fan off, go in the corner. You do that for about 6 laps solid, and it gets real busy in that cockpit real quick. And not to mention, you still have to bust off good laps and try to catch who's in front of you because laps is winding down.
Yeah.
And then on lap 72 out of 74, Tommy Neal finally caught me. I think that wasn't but like a 10-lap run. He finally caught me and did what Tommy Neal likes to do in Tommy Neal fashion. He's a tiger, and he reached out and mauled me a little bit. So, you know, that car actually, after that race, I was so disgusted, I never worked on it again until I got it ready for Chase Murphy to drive.
That's the stuff you just don't see from the stands. There can be so much just going on behind the wheel that in the stands, and if you've never worked on a car, you literally would never see or never know. So I'm glad you dove into that. But what time we have left, now that you spent more time working on cars and stuff obviously than I did. I was a fan till I was 21, and I started announcing. But I come to find now that I'm getting into my 30s, your greatest joy that comes from working races kind of changes as time goes on. So with what time we have left, if there's one kind of instance or kind of thing that gives you like that great like sense of joy from working races instead of just sitting or just, you know, working on cars or just racing, like now that you're involved on the other side, like what's kind of like that instance that gives you the good joy? And I'll give you mine just for an example so you kind of know what I'm talking about. I was announcing last Saturday at Orange County Speedway, and we had 8 races. We got the last race of the night, and it was Southeast Limited Late Models. And a guy I've known for years, Thomas Chappell, won the race.
Oh, wow.
And I had not realized Thomas had been running a car at Orange County in some form or fashion for 10 years and had never won a race there. And he got out in victory lane. I am tired. My quads hurt because I'm out of shape. I've been running up and down. I'm spent. I'm physically tired, and I ain't done nothing but announce. And I get down to victory lane and see a guy who's had 10 years worth of hard work come out in his emotion in victory lane, and know that that's not fake. It's not scripted. It's just that pure, raw emotion. and just getting to be there like 2 feet away from him while he's talking about it and he's smiling and he's crying. That's kind of my moment at races now when I see someone who goes through that or whatever and gets to finally win. That's what kind of when I get that moment of like, all right, this is why I was here, because this was a good moment. So like on your side of the fence, where you got way more responsibility than I do at a racetrack, what's kind of that moment for you where you look and you're just like, yeah, that's why I was here. That's what I was. This paid off all the stress I put up with to get here.
Just the people. The people in general that just appreciate this place, not necessarily what we may do, for it now, but just the people that appreciate it for what it was and what it meant to them early. Because I have a lot of the same stories, a lot of the same background that they do. Being here when it was dirt, they remember it when it was dirt. They remember all the big dirt racers back then. They remember when it paved and who stayed, and the Barry Beggerleys and the Jason Yorks and the Robert Turners and the Todd Masseys and the Frank Masseys and just and the Red Justices and all of them that had been here over the decades. People remember that, and it gives them something to kind of go down memory lane with. But the fact that the thing that really kind of hits home for me is all of these people have a job.
Yeah.
They go work a 40-hour job, hopefully, and when they get that paycheck, they decide what they're going to do with it. Usually some people, they go out and they buy food, they buy gas, they buy the necessities.
They go fishing or bowling
whatever
or hunting.
else. Yeah.
There's a lot of hobbies to choose from.
But the fact that they choose to take their hard-earned dollar that they sweat for, and they choose to spend it here to come and watch a race at Ace Speedway. That feeling of seeing the fans, show up in droves, and the pits are full. I know how hard it is to keep one race car up or two, but to have so many different teams involved in racing still, and then to show up at my racetrack.
Yeah.
But I don't view it as just my racetrack. This is Ace Speedway. It's just home.
Yeah.
And when I always knew, no matter who was promoting it at the time, I always said to myself, like, if this was my racetrack, I know what I would do in that situation.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it would be, sometimes you're the dog and sometimes you're the dog bite. So, you never know what the other person is thinking at the time. And sometimes you don't care being a hard-nosed racer. You just want to they're wrong and I'm right. But
you're not being selfish. You're focused on your own deal.
Yeah, so I think just being on this side of the fence, you have more respect. You have more respect for everything else, all the other aspects of the racing world and what it takes to put something like this on. And then where the fans are at because you've been a fan. You show up at a racetrack and man, I worked hard all week at Ace Speedway, and I want to go watch a race somewhere, so I'm going to go to Orange County or South Boston or Hickory and just watch a race. But I can't go anywhere without somebody knowing me. I've had several girlfriends in my life, and every one of them have said similar things. They go somewhere, and, that somebody says, hey, and it's like, hey, man, how's it going? You hold a conversation with them, and then when the conversation's over, it's just like, man, you can't go nowhere without.
That's what my wife says. We'll go somewhere, and someone will find me and talk racing. She'll be like, "Is there you people are everywhere?" I'm like, "They really are.
Yeah,
they really are." You think everybody's gathered in one spot on race day, and you think that's it? No, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, man.
You wear a racing shirt somewhere, I could be at work in Greensboro, wear a racing shirt. And one of the truckers would come in and say something, and I'll be like, "Yeah, I remember Oak Level." It's wild how wide it stretches.
That's right.
You don't think about it at the time, though.
No, you really don't. But the people that show up here, they spend their hard-earned dollar to come down and buy my cheeseburgers, or they come down here and they watch the racing that we put on. They watch the people. We're trying to still grow new stars. To not necessarily replace the Rodney Cooks and the Barry Beggerleys and the Robert Turners and the Todd Masseys, but to start a new chapter and to continue the racing world. So we've got the Justin Carrolls and the Dylan Harvilles and the Ryan Millingtons and the Gary Young Juniors. We've got all these people, Gary Young Jr., I can sit here and tell you how many times I've seen him and Brad Allen duke it out on the racetrack and have some knockdown, drag-out throwdowns.
Yeah.
And, these guys are just going crazy on the racetrack. And it is either one of them's winning or the other one's winning. And then you never know who's going to come in third. So it always made the championship, really, really tight. And it made it to where, if somebody if they're not winning, they're wrecking. And then whoever's there in third or fourth in the catbird seat, they make a good championship run out of it. But
it's letting that next chapter get rid.
Right.
Or
so
that is terrible grammar. I said get rid.
And aren't you a journalism major?
I sound like the redneck on Hatfields and McCoys that said,
it's already been et.
Yeah, we don't have the pig. Why? It's done been et.
Yeah.
So.
But those chapters, nobody really remembers them until they're gone.
That is the truth.
And then once they're gone, it's like, man, I remember when Gary Young Jr. and Brad Allen used to tear it up.
Yeah.
And those were they had some wars on the racetrack
and then on the microphone after the race.
Yeah. And I remember a Brad Allen story real quick. This is funny.
Yeah, I was about to say you better button this one up.
Yeah. Brad Allen and Gary Young Jr. They're just neck and neck on the racetrack. They're beating and banging. They're pushing and shoving. They're taking and giving. And I think it's 3 laps to go. I'm helping Brad because...
Is this the 2008 UARA race?
No, this is...
that would have been a good one.
This one, yeah, but...
I'm going to do that one with Brad on the next episode.
You do that, but this one is just a story about just a regular, just a regular points night.
All right.
So these guys are just going at it hard. Brad's coming off of a championship win, and I think he was going for number 2. Anyways, so he gets taken out by Gary. I think they cut a tire down, so he comes in early. And instead of, these modifieds, they've got wheelbase or, tread width rather, that's way too wide to fit in the trailers. So knowing this, Brad Allen just tries to take his car and just make it fit anyways. So he just takes the car, gets it straight, hits the gas, and drives the son of a gun up in the trailer and gets out, parks it right there on the trailer ramp. And his dad, Dub, goes, "What's the matter with you?" And Brad's only response is, "The daggum car ain't in the trailer. That's what's wrong with me."
That's that raw emotion.
Yeah.
You don't get that you don't get that fishing. That's only racing. Well, I think we are going to put a button on it right there. You see, I had like 5 things to talk about, but we get to spinning yarns about racing in Ace Speedway. Time just slips away like crazy. I was supposed to only go 30 minutes. We were up near 48 minutes, but we went long enough to put Jackson Turner back to sleep. But Jason, thank you for joining me here on a Saturday. I know you still got a few more races, so be sure to check out acespeedway.net and check out the schedule. If you hadn't made it out to a race this year, still a couple more events to check out. Make sure you come on out and get a taste of what we just talked about for 45 minutes. We didn't even get to a lot of the stuff. We got hung up on small stuff. But
we'll have to do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll have to continue this later. But thank y'all for listening. If you stuck around to this point, man, you're awesome. So God bless you. This has been the Half Price Concessions Podcast.